Welcome to Fun Facts Online. What if the key to mending a brain devastated by a stroke wasn't a futuristic, lab-created drug, but a naturally occurring compound known for decades as the spirit molecule? This isn't science fiction. Today, we're diving into the groundbreaking research that places N-dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, at the forefront of a potential revolution in stroke treatment. A stroke is a brutal and sudden event. It happens when the blood supply to a part of the brain is cut off, either by a blockage, which is an ischemic stroke, or by a bleed, a hemorrhagic stroke. Without a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients, brain cells begin to die within minutes. This initial damage sets off a cascade of secondary injuries, leading to widespread cell death, brain swelling, and inflammation. The consequences are dire. Stroke is a leading cause of both death and long-term disability worldwide. Current treatments for the most common type, ischemic stroke, are a frantic race against time. The gold standard involves either a clot-busting drug called TPA or a procedure called a mechanical thrombectomy to physically pull the clot out. But there's a catch. These interventions are only effective within a very narrow time window, often just a few hours after the first symptoms appear. A huge number of patients don't get to the hospital in time or are ineligible for other reasons. And even for those who are treated, a full recovery is far from guaranteed. This leaves a vast, unmet need for therapies that can do two things. First, protect the brain from the immediate damage, and second, actively promote long-term recovery and healing. And this is where our unlikely candidate, DMT, enters the picture. DMT is a powerful psychedelic compound. It's found in thousands of plant species and is famously the key psychoactive ingredient in the Amazonian ceremonial brew, ayahuasca. For centuries, its role has been tied to spirituality, inducing profound and intense shifts in consciousness. It's even found in trace amounts within the human brain, though its natural role there remains a mystery. Given this history, associating DMT with acute medical care for stroke seems like a stretch. However, recent preclinical studies are forcing a major reevaluation. Groundbreaking research, particularly from a team of Hungarian scientists, has unveiled a completely different side to this molecule, one that has nothing to do with psychedelic visions and everything to do with cellular repair. The findings from their work in animal and cell culture models of stroke are nothing short of remarkable. Let's break down what they found DMT can do. First, it significantly reduces the size of the dead brain tissue, known as the infarct, and also decreases brain swelling or edema. These are two of the biggest drivers of damage after a stroke, so reducing them is a massive win for brain protection. Second, DMT helps to stabilize and restore the blood-brain barrier. You can think of this barrier as the brain's highly selective security system. A stroke essentially blows a hole in this wall, allowing an influx of inflammatory cells and other harmful molecules from the blood to pour into the delicate brain tissue, causing a second wave of damage. The studies showed that DMT helps to patch up this barrier, restoring its integrity and function, and stemming the tide of secondary injury. Third, DMT actively combats neuroinflammation. The brain's immune response to a stroke is a double-edged sword. While intended to clean up debris, it often becomes overactive and destructive, killing off healthy, salvageable neurons in the process. DMT was found to suppress the production of inflammatory molecules and calm down the brain's primary immune cells, the microglia, shifting their function from destructive to protective. But perhaps the most exciting finding is DMT's apparent ability to turbocharge the brain's own repair mechanisms. It was shown to promote neurogenesis, which is the growth of new neurons, and enhance neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself, to form new connections and pathways to compensate for damaged areas. This is the fundamental process behind all functional recovery after a stroke, whether it's relearning to walk or speak. DMT doesn't just protect what's left. It appears to help actively rebuild what was lost. So how is a single molecule doing all of this? The secret seems to lie in its interaction with a unique receptor in the brain called the sigma-1 receptor. This receptor is a crucial player in managing cellular stress and protecting neurons from damage. It acts like a master switch for a cell's survival and repair programs. By activating the sigma-1 receptor, DMT seems to orchestrate this entire symphony of protective and restorative effects. What makes this discovery so significant is that the sigma-1 receptor is distinct from the receptor typically associated with the hallucinogenic effects of psychedelics, which is the serotonin 5-HT2A receptor. This separation of mechanisms is the key. It suggests that the therapeutic benefits of DMT for stroke may be achievable at subhallucinogenic doses. The goal is not to induce a psychedelic experience in a critically ill patient, but to precisely harness the molecule's biological healing properties without the intense psychological effects. This research is part of a much broader movement, often called the psychedelic renaissance. After decades of stigmatization that halted promising research in the mid-20th century, science is now rigorously re-exploring these compounds for a range of conditions, from depression and PTSD to neurological disorders. Leading the charge to bring DMT from the lab to the clinic for stroke is Algernon Pharmaceuticals, a Canadian drug development company. Through its subsidiary, Algernon Neuroscience, the company is pioneering a clinical research program to test DMT in human stroke patients. They've already successfully completed a phase 1 clinical trial in the Netherlands. The purpose of this trial was to identify a dose of DMT that could be administered through a continuous intravenous infusion without inducing any psychedelic effects. And they found one. This is a critical first step. The company is now planning a much larger Phase 2, a clinical trial, set to begin in Hungary in the third quarter of 2025. This will be a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study, the gold standard of clinical research, enrolling 40 patients who have just suffered an acute ischemic stroke. The primary goal will be to assess the safety of administering DMT in this fragile patient population. But researchers will also be closely watching for signs of efficacy. They'll use brain imaging to measure any changes in the volume of the brain infarct. They'll also track the recovery of motor function and improvements in cognitive functions like vision, hearing, and speech, which is often impaired in a condition called aphasia. As Dr. David Nutt, a world-renowned neuropsychopharmacologist and a consultant to Algernon, has pointed out, many promising stroke drugs have failed in the past because they focused only on neuroprotection during the acute phase. The dual potential of DMT to both protect the brain and promote long-term neuroplasticity represents a new, far more holistic approach to treatment. Despite the immense promise, the path forward is filled with challenges. The most significant is patient safety. The acute effects of DMT can include a rapid increase in heart rate and blood pressure. For a stroke patient, who often has pre-existing cardiovascular problems, this could be dangerous. Algernon's strategy of using subhallucinogenic, continuous IV infusions is designed to mitigate this risk. Recent research has also explored co-administering DMT with short-acting beta blockers to specifically counteract these cardiovascular side effects without blunting its healing action in the brain. Beyond the physical risks, there are regulatory hurdles. In many countries, DMT is a Schedule I controlled substance, which makes research and development incredibly complex and expensive. However, the growing mountain of evidence for the therapeutic potential of psychedelics is slowly shifting perspectives, with agencies like the FDA now publishing guidance for how to conduct clinical trials with these compounds. For the millions of people living with the after-effects of a stroke, the journey of recovery is often long and arduous. Their stories are testaments to the resilience of the human spirit and the brain's capacity to heal. They engage in years of therapy to relearn skills we take for granted. Every story of a survivor who regained the ability to walk or talk after being told they had reached a plateau is a story of neuroplasticity in action. It is this very process of forging new pathways in the brain that DMT is thought to enhance. The prospect of a medication that could amplify the benefits of rehabilitation and give the brain a biological advantage in its fight to heal is a profound beacon of hope for this community. The research into DMT for stroke treatment represents more than just a single novel therapy. It signals a paradigm shift in how we approach brain injury. For decades, the primary focus has been on damage limitation. Now, armed with insights from psychedelic science, we are entering a new era, one that emphasizes and augments the brain's own innate capacity to heal and rewire itself. The journey of DMT, from the realm of the mystical to the forefront of neurological medicine, is a powerful testament to scientific curiosity. While the road ahead is long and the challenges are real, the potential reward is immeasurable, a future where the healing potential of the spirit molecule could help mend brains and restore lives shattered by stroke. The world will be watching as this revolutionary research unfolds. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.